The air in the Los Angeles County Courthouse hung heavy, charged with anticipation. The gallery buzzed with whispers as spectators craned their necks to watch the unfolding drama. At the defendant's table stood Yolande Dawson, a wiry 19-year-old who looked almost swallowed by the oversized desk. His hands rested casually in his pockets, his posture defiant, yet composed. As if the weight of the charges, grand theft auto and resisting arrest, barely fazed him. To Judge Walter Grayson, perched high on his bench, Yolande was just another troubled teen, a case to be dispatched before his afternoon golf game. Grayson leaned back, his fingers tapping idly on the polished wood of his desk. He peered over his glasses, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. "What's this, kid? Think you're some kind of lawyer?" His tone dripped with condescension, coaxing a few chuckles from the courtroom. The bailiff, the stenographer, even the prosecutor joined in the amusement. Yolande, however, stood unflinched, his expression unreadable. He wasn't here to play their game. He'd been preparing for this moment for years, not as a defendant, but as someone who knew the law inside out. While other teens obsessed over sports or video games, Yolande had pored over case law, soaking up the intricacies of the legal system. His mother, Denise, a paralegal for 2 decades, filled their dinner table conversations with stories of courtroom battles, tales of lazy prosecutors, biased judges, and defense attorneys who barely showed up. By age 14, Yolande could dissect a trial with the precision of a seasoned law student. But to Grayson, he was just a kid in over his head. "Let's keep this moving," the judge said, with a bored sigh, flipping open the case file. "I've got places to be." The gallery snickered again, but Jalen's lips twitched into the faintest of smiles. Grayson had just tipped his hand, and Yolande was ready to play his prosecutor. Mitchell Carrington rose, exuding the polished confidence of a man who'd already won in his mind. His suit was immaculate, his tie knotted with precision. "Your Honor," he began, his voice smooth and practiced, "the state will prove beyond any doubt that Yolande Dawson was caught driving a stolen 2022 Audi A6, reported missing mere hours before his arrest. After a reckless attempt to flee through downtown, he was apprehended. His fingerprints on the steering wheel sealed the case. The evidence, Your Honor, is undeniable." The words hit like a gavel, stirring murmurs in the gallery. On paper, the case seemed airtight. A stolen car, a chase, fingerprints. Grayson glanced at Yolande, then back at Carrington. "Proceed," he said, his tone flat. The prosecutor strode toward the jury box, ready to cement his victory. But Yolande was already calculating his next move, the one nobody in the room saw coming. The sharp click of Mitchell Carrington's polished shoes echoed across the courtroom floor as he faced the jury. "The defense," he declared with a practiced sneer, locking eyes with Yolande Dawson for the first time, "will likely spin a tale of misunderstanding, painting Mr. Dawson as some innocent bystander caught in a mix-up." He paused for effect, his voice dripping with skepticism. "But tell me, what kind of innocent flees from the police?" The gallery stirred, the air growing heavier with anticipation. Judge Grayson leaned forward, propping his chin on his hand, his gaze fixed on Yolande, who stood unmoved, his eyes steady and unyielding. Carrington pressed on, flipping through a neat stack of documents with a flourish. "Your Honor, I present the testimony of Officer Daniel Ruiz, who saw the defendant behind the wheel of the stolen 2022 Audi A6 before he attempted to evade capture. The vehicle was confirmed stolen, and the arrest followed protocol to the letter." Grayson gave a slow nod, exhaling through his nose. "Sounds clear enough," he muttered, his tone suggesting the case was all but decided. To most in the room, it was a stolen car, a chase, an arrest, open and shut. But Yolande, who had spent years dissecting trials in his mind, saw the fault lines others missed. He stood silent, biding his time. The judge tapped his gavel lightly, his impatience creeping through. "All right, Let's hear from the defense. He turned to Lisa Thornton, Jalen's public defender, who had been a near-silent presence all morning. She rose hesitantly, her nerves betraying her in the shifting of her feet. Your Honor, my client. Before she could finish, Yalen placed a gentle hand on her arm, a quiet signal. She froze, then sank back into her seat. For the first time, Jalen's voice cut through the room, calm and deliberate. I'll be representing myself, Your Honor. The courtroom fell deathly still. Grayson's eyebrows arched, a mix of surprise and amusement flickering across his face. Come again. Yalen didn't waver. I'm defending myself, he repeated, his voice steady as steel. Whispers rippled through the gallery. The bailiff's eyes widened, and Carrington's confident smirk twitched, betraying a fleeting crack in his composure. This ought to be good, he scoffed, but the room's energy had shifted. Yalen stepped forward, and the tide began to turn. The weight of every gaze settled on him, but Yalen stood unfazed, hands still tucked casually in his pockets. He let the silence linger, just enough to unsettle the room, before speaking again. Your Honor, before I proceed, I'd like to clarify something with the prosecution. Carrington tilted his head, arms crossed, his expression a mix of curiosity and disdain. Go on. Yalen took a measured step forward. You stated Officer Ruiz personally witnessed me driving the vehicle before my arrest, correct? Carrington sighed, already dismissing the question. That's right. It's in his report. Yalone nodded, his eyes flicking to Judge Grayson. Your Honor, I move to dismiss Officer Ruiz's testimony as evidence. Grayson's brow furrowed. On what grounds? Yalen pulled his hands from his pockets, gesturing toward the prosecution's table with calm precision. Because Officer Ruiz never saw me in that car. In fact, he wasn't even on duty during the chase. A shadow of doubt crossed Carrington's face. What are you talking about? He snapped. Yalen stepped closer, his voice unwavering. Your Honor, I request the court verify Officer Ruiz's GPS logs from that night. If his report claims he saw me in the vehicle, his location history should confirm it. Prosecutor cleared his throat, his jaw tightening. Your Honor, this is a report filed by a sworn officer. Are we really entertaining a defendant's word over a professional's? His tone was sharp, but the confidence in his voice wavered, just enough to betray him. Yalone shrugged, the gesture almost too casual. If Officer Ruiz was where he claimed, the GPS logs will back him up. But if he wasn't, he trailed off, letting the doubt settle like dust. Grayson's eyes narrowed, studying Yalone, before shifting to Carrington. Does the prosecution object to verifying the officer's GPS data? Carrington's hesitation was brief, but telling long enough for the jury to notice, for the gallery to lean forward, for the judge to tilt his head. Yalone exhaled softly, his mind racing through years of observing trials, dissecting prosecutors, strategies, and spotting their weaknesses. A confident lawyer doesn't pause. Grayson rubbed his temple, his patience thinning. Counselor Carrington shook his head, forcing a tight smile. No objections, Your Honor, but the room had changed. The chuckles were gone, replaced by a taut silence that screamed louder than any objection. Carrington shuffled his papers, his polished veneer cracking at the edges. Your Honor, while we await the GPS records, the fact remains, the defendant's fingerprints were on the stolen vehicle's steering wheel. Yalone nodded, his expression unreadable. That's true. He stepped forward, his voice steady, but deliberate. But let's talk about those fingerprints. Grayson raised an eyebrow, motioning for him to go on. Yalen turned to the jury, locking eyes with each juror in turn, his gaze calm but piercing. The prosecution wants you to believe that my fingerprints on a steering wheel prove I stole the car. That's their story. But let's think about it. He paused, his tone measured, almost conversational. Imagine you're in a store. You try on a jacket, slip your hands in the pockets, maybe zip it up, then put it back and leave. Hours later, someone steals that jacket. Do your fingerprints make you a thief? A few jurors exchanged glances, and a low murmur rippled through the gallery. Yalin pressed forward, not giving Carrington a moment to regroup. That car was parked outside 7 to 11 hours before it was reported stolen. I was at that store with 3 friends. As we passed by, I leaned against the car. The door was unlocked, so I opened it. Stupid, maybe, but curious. I didn't drive it, didn't take anything, didn't steal it. He let the words settle, then his voice sharpened, cutting through the room. Does touching something make you a criminal? Carrington fumbled with his notes, searching for a counterpunch. Yalin didn't wait. And while we're at it, let's talk about how those fingerprints were analyzed. He turned to Grayson, his tone respectful but unrelenting. Your Honor, has the forensic specialist who handled this evidence been subpoenaed to testify? Judge Grayson blinked, visibly thrown by Jalen's question. His gaze darted to Carrington, who hesitated, his confidence faltering. No, the prosecutor admitted, his voice tight. Jalen's lips pressed into a thin line, his expression calm but pointed. So, the state's building a case against me with forensic evidence, but they didn't bother to bring the specialist who handled it. No chance for me to question the chain of custody or the analysis's accuracy. Carrington's jaw clenched, but he had no response. Yalin nodded, as if that silence confirmed everything. Interesting, Grayson sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose, his earlier certainty fading. This case, which he'd assumed would be a quick formality, was spiraling out of his control. But Yalin wasn't finished. He stepped forward, his voice steady and deliberate. Your Honor, I'd like to submit an official statement from the vehicle's owner. The judge's frown deepened. The owner, Yalin, nodded. Yes. Mr. Raymond Whitaker, the registered owner of the Audi, gave a statement to the police, one the prosecution conveniently left out of their filings. I think I know why. He turned to Carrington, his eyes locking onto the prosecutor's. Do you recall what Mr. Whitaker told officers the night his car was stolen? Carrington's face tightened. He knew what was coming. Yalin didn't wait for a reply. He pulled a printed transcript from his file and read clearly. I left my car running when I ducked into the gas station. Some kid jumped in and took off. But it wasn't the guy you arrested. The kid I saw was white. A collective gasp swept through the courtroom. Yalin held up the transcript, his voice unwavering. This is from the original police reporter report. The prosecution never mentioned. He turned to Grayson. The arresting officer noted this statement, but the prosecution ignored it. Yet they want this jury to believe I, someone who doesn't even match the thief's description, am guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Carrington lurched forward, his voice sharp but unsteady. Your Honor, this is irrelevant. The defendant was found in possession of the vehicle. Yalin shook his head, his tone calm but razor sharp. No, I wasn't. I was arrested blocks away from where the car was abandoned, walking home after buying snacks with friends. I wasn't in the car, wasn't near it, wasn't fleeing. The only thing tying me to this case is sloppy police work and assumptions. The courtroom fell silent, the weight of Jalen's words settling over the room. Grayson exhaled slowly, rubbing his temple as the case unraveled before him. Yalin faced the jury, his voice steady but searing. The real thief got away that night. The police saw a black kid nearby and decided that was good enough. That's what this case is about. Grayson cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses. He stared at Jalen, then the jury, and finally at Carrington, whose face was flushed with frustration. Does the prosecution have anything further? The judge asked. Carrington stood rigid, his voice clipped. No, Your Honor. Grayson leaned back, his expression unreadable, the weight of the moment hanging heavy in the air. Judge Grayson leaned forward, his voice cutting through the tense silence. Case dismissed. The courtroom froze for a heartbeat, then erupted. Gasps of shock mingled with murmurs of relief. Reporters scribbled furiously, and the gallery buzzed with restless energy. Yolande stood still, letting the moments sink in, his face calm but resolute. Grayson, still clutching his gavel, met Jalen's gaze. Something flickered in the judge's eyes, recognition, perhaps, or a trace of regret. Yalen held his stare briefly, before turning to leave. As he reached the door, Grayson's voice stopped him. "Mr. Dawson." Yalon paused, not turning. The judge hesitated, then said, "You should think about law school." Jalen's lips curved into a faint smirk. He didn't need to think about it. His path was already set. Outside, the courthouse steps swarmed with reporters, their cameras flashing and microphones jabbing forward. "Yalen, did you expect a dismissal? What's next? How does it feel to outsmart a seasoned prosecutor?" He pulled his hoodie up, brushing past the clamor. This wasn't about fame or ego. It was about something deeper. At the foot of the steps, his mother Denise stood waiting, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. She studied him for a long moment before shaking her head with a soft exhale. "Boy, you nearly gave me a heart attack." Yalen grinned, rubbing the back of his neck. "Had to take the chance, Ma." She held his gaze, then pulled him into a fierce hug. "Always the stubborn one," she murmured, her voice thick with pride. The cameras kept flashing, but Jalen's focus was elsewhere. Across the street, Judge Grayson stood by his car, watching. The arrogance that had defined him earlier was gone, replaced by a quiet introspection. He'd expected another routine case, another defendant, another guilty plea. But Yalen had turned the tables, forcing the system to confront its own flaws. For once, it had faltered. This wasn't just about one case. It was about the countless others lost to bias, shortcuts, and a system that often valued efficiency over truth. Yolan had the knowledge to fight back, but how many others didn't? He knew this courtroom wouldn't be his last. Next time, he wouldn't be the defendant, he'd be the attorney, and he wouldn't be alone. This story carries a lesson. The justice system is built on laws, but shaped by people. Those people can change, but only if we demand it. Share this story if it made you pause, even for a moment. Like, subscribe, and keep the conversation alive, because next time, it might not be Yalen, it might be someone you know.